Brotherhood, only on Radio Islam, where faith, love, and legacy meet.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We welcome you to the airwaves of Radio Islam International this Wednesday morning. It's gone 13 minutes past the hour of 9. This is the program with Maulana Zahier Ahmed Ragie. The series that is currently running is entitled Love Your Kids. It's a beautiful series. It began, Maulana started the series at the start of this year. This is today the third episode that is running. Well, my name is Ahmed Raja. I am actually sitting in for Maulana Muhammad Bam. He normally is the host of this program, but alhamdulillah, I have been given the great fortune of sitting in for him for these past few weeks, and I have really been enjoying the beautiful program that Maulana Zahier Ahmed Ragie Sahab has been presenting to us, and it's been a great pleasure to host Maulana on this program. Let's welcome Maulana onto the program. Maulana, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, Maulana. And we also take this opportunity of greeting all our listeners on Radio Islam, Radio Al Ansar, and those that are joining us on the Ummahat platform. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah so much for that, Maulana. It's again a great honor to have Maulana back on the program. You know, it's we wait for this part of the week, the Wednesday morning, the program. Very enlightening, very interesting, very informative. And, you know, the key objective of this is that it's not just having the program, or it's not just listening to the program. The most important part is to bring it into practice, to make amal, to practice upon these beautiful advices that Maulana is sharing with us. There's the great amount that we can learn from this program, from other programs as well. Important is that we do sit with the intention of learning, and we sit with the intention of practicing. It's not, you know, it shouldn't be down to I'm going to listen today, the radio is on, if I hear something, okay, if I don't hear, okay. But, you know, we sit with the intention of learning, we sit with the intention of listening properly, understanding, practicing, then alhamdulillah, this program will itself be a form of reward, and there'll be great benefit that we can take from you, Maulana.
Inshallah.
So just to let our listeners know, you would be in tune with the program. As we said, the title of this program is called Love Your Kids, but there's a whole, there's a whole, a very important intrinsic discussion that is centering in this, under this topic. And Maulana is actually breaking this entire series into different parts, and we're currently still busy with the first part, and there'll be other parts and other segments to this entire program as the weeks go by. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant Maulana Afiyat and Sihat, that Maulana can continue with the series as amazing as Maulana has been doing. But in the first part of the series, in the first part of this program, what we have been taking a look at is we've been concentrating on mother. Right in the first week, Maulana very amazingly took us through some beautiful definitions of the word as is the word that is normally used in Arabic for the word mother. And Maulana gave us some great definitions and great examples and meanings taken from Quran and from Hadith and from the usage of the Arabic language. Alhamdulillah, there's great discussion, important and interesting. And then last week, the discussion was equally as interesting. Maulana, the verse that you heard in the promo, in the start of the program, Wasain al-Insan, in that verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about Walid, Walida, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about And Maulana very uniquely explained to us the difference between those two, the Walid or Walida and and the difference that it has. In English, we might translate both to mother, but it's amazing in the Arabic language, and the Quran is amazing, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has so beautifully, eloquently used these words in this one verse. Both words are used because they actually refer to two different things. And Jazakallah to Maulana for that. In the second half of the program last week, Maulana took us through the Ummahatul Mu'mineen, the mothers of this Ummah, radiallahu ta'ala anhunna, the honorable and the beloved wives of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the impact that they had. Now today we're going to continue with the discussion, but having done and having discussed the Ummahatul Mu'mineen radiallahu ta'ala anhunna, today we're going to take a look at the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the great mums and the great mothers that hailed from the band and from the group of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhun.
Yes, Maulana, Jazakumullah for that beautiful intro and recap. And I think let's just dive into the program and have our discussions. And again, Jazakumullah for highlighting the fact that these are just not stories, but it is legacies that our great mothers of the past had left behind so that today we can take lessons from it. Regarding the Sahaba and the greatest mums from the Sahaba, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhunna ajma'een, I want to make a point of clarification. We are going to look at the Sahaba and the first generations after the Sahaba. When you look at the mothers in the time of the Sahaba, the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they tend to be stories of battle because they lived through persecution. So naturally, when you study them, you find mums that were training their children to be soldiers of Islam, mums that were training their children to be mujahideen, mum that were training their children to be warriors. And I wanted to pick certain categories of women. And the first is the three women who refused to be executed, or rather, who refused to be excluded from Bay'ul Aqaba. Bay'ul Aqaba, from the pledge of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam when he went to Medina. So this is the pledge that some of the Sahaba had given to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that he should migrate to Medina and they will provide him the protection. And this pledge is referred to as Bay'ul Aqaba. So there were some women who refused to be excluded from this pledge. It was understood that men will go out and meet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and they will take the pledge from him or give him their pledge. There were three women that refused to stay behind. The first one of my favorite among them from the Sahabiyat. In fact, if anyone asked me what to name their kids currently after going through her story, I would say Rumaysa. Rumaysa bint Malhan. Subhanallah, what a woman, what a mother. Also known as Sulaym. So Rumaysa bint Bilhan, also known as Sulaym. Now, even before Islam was introduced to Yathrib, which is now known as Medina, Rumaysa was known for her excellent character, the power of her intellect, and her independence of mind. These are noble attributes for anyone, but they are extremely noble attributes for women. The power of their intellect, the power of their excellent character, and the power of their independence of mind. And I'm putting emphasis on this is because this is what Islam teaches women to be. Women of excellent character, women that have the power of intellect, and also women who have the independence of mind. She was known by various names, including Rumaysa and also Rumaysa with a ghain, Rumaysa. But these were possibly her nicknames. One historian says that her real name was Sahla, but later she was popularly known as Sulaym. And she is from the tribe of Banu Najah. Before Islam, she was recognized as being very, very intelligent. She was recognized to be very self-assertive, self-confident, and she was among the very few women who were able to read and write, which was not the norm at that time. So we are learning some amazing characteristics and attributes of this great Sahabiya, Rumaysa, Sulaim or Sahla. And we are talking about some attributes that we in today's time should encourage our women to have. And that is, she was recognized as being very intelligent. She had her own independence, self-confidence. She could read and write. That means she was a learned, educated woman, which was not the norm at that time. Also known for being very assertive, which when you look at the women of Ansar had this attribute. In fact, our beloved mother, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha says, and she praised the women of Ansar for being self-assertive, for being self-confident. And Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha said regarding the women of Ansar, the best women are the women of Ansar. Their sense of modesty did not stop them from becoming scholars of deen and religion. Subhanallah. Reflect on this. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha says, she praises the women of the Ansar, and she says, praise them for being self-assertive, self-confident. And she also said that the best women are the women of the Ansar. Their sense of modesty did not stop them from becoming scholars of deen and religion. Now we're learning from here in itself that it's a myth that Islam discourages women to be educated, and more so in deen, and the myth that women must always be subjugated to men. So this is in itself a great lesson for us to learn. Sulaim was extremely beautiful, and she was a very special woman. She was married to Malik ibn Nadar. He was one of the noble men of Medina. And she was the mother of Anas bin Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. Now, we heard so much about Anas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So she heard the invitation towards Islam, the da'wah towards Islam of Mus'ab ibn Umair, also known as Mus'ab al-Khayr. And he was a Sahabi from the Banu Abduddar branch of the Quraysh. So Mus'ab ibn Umair was from the branch of the Quraysh, and she heard about Islam from Mus'ab ibn Umair, about a Nabi that has come and who is inviting towards Tawheed. And Mus'ab ibn Umair embraced Islam and was among the first ambassadors of Islam. He passed away in the Battle of Uhud. So she heard the da'wah, the inviting from Mus'ab ibn Umair of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And due to her independence, due to her intelligence, due to her wisdom, she recognized the da'wah of Islam, and she said, he is telling the truth. Mus'ab ibn Umair is telling the truth. And she had no hesitation whatsoever, and she accepted Islam. But she still remained married to her husband. Now, the interesting thing is that Malik ibn Nadar was one of the people who opposed Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam coming to Medina. At the same time, he did not persecute the people. So he was someone that was not really interested in Islam. He had not accepted Islam. He was not in favor of people coming to Medina and migrating to Medina from Mecca. Yet he did not persecute people, because he could see that his people wanted Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then when he saw Sulaim, subhanallah, teaching his son Anas, he became infuriated. And when he heard Sulaim become a Muslim, Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates, now imagine this home in Medina where the father or the husband is not a believer, the mother has accepted Islam, the wife has accepted Islam, and they have this child, this young child, Anas. And there will always be some form of tension in this home. So Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates for us, and take your imagination and your imagery into that home. Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, I was in that house, in the house that day. Malik walks in and says, Asamuti. Samut is like an insult. Like, did you become one of those people? And she replies, no, I did not. But I did become a believer. So in other words, she rejects the disgraceful way by which the husband is approaching her. And she says, no, I'm not disgraced. And I have not disgraced you either. Yes, I have become a Muslim. We're learning the assertiveness and the independence of Rumaysa or Sulaim. Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, and I'm watching this and I'm observing, and it becomes a little tense in the home. Malik said, if you want to follow them, it's fine, but don't corrupt my son. But Sulaim used to teach Anas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu everything she learned. Remember, we are talking about how mothers taught, developed, educated their children, in spite of everything at odds against her and the environment of her home. So Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, in spite of this tense situation, Sulaim used to teach me everything she learned about Islam. And Anas, on the other hand, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, could not wait to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, because Sulaim continued talking to him about how amazing this man, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, was, even though she did not meet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Again, a point of reflection, that we as mothers, we need to learn the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We need to study the seerah of Rasulullah, and we need to teach the seerah to our children so that they begin to love Rasulullah, love the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And Anas says, my mother sat me down and told me to say the kalima. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam took the bay'ah, she found out and she made me take her, even though I was a young boy, and we went together to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Imagine that scene. Sulaim loves Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. She loves the message of Islam. She accepts Islam against all odds of her husband's persuasiveness of not accepting Islam and him not being happy. And she's teaching her son Anas everything about Rasulullah. Now she hears that Rasulullah has arrived and she wants to take the pledge. And now she dresses her son, subhanallah, and she prepares to go herself with her son to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Another lesson that we learn, that as parents, we should take our children to meet pious elders in our community. We should teach them how to respect and how to love the pious seniors and elders in our community. And not only in our community, we should teach them how to love the scholars and the pious of our community. And we should be understand that it is not necessary that every pious person has to be a scholar. There are many pious people that are not ulama, yet they have the piety in them, and we should teach our children to love them. So now what happens is that Malik her husband, the father, gets into a dispute over money. The husband gets into a dispute over money, and the man that he gets into a dispute with kills him, kills the father of Anas, he kills the husband of Sulaim. Now, what do you think this would do to Sulaim? The marriage ended whilst he was angry with her. And they weren't talking because of the difference that they had regarding the acceptance of Islam of Sulaim. Now, mothers, wives, people can reflect that sometimes we have these arguments, although the argument might not be as severe and intense as this one. But whilst they were not talking to each other, on the basis of deen, the husband is killed. So some people try to guilt her, to send her on this guilt trip. And she responded saying that this was Allah and it was more important than even my marriage. Her remarriage is even more interesting. Now, we said that she was a noble woman. She was an educated lady. She was among the very few that knew the skill of reading and writing. And she was known for her intelligence. And she was a pretty woman. So there were lots of people that really wanted to marry her. And her remarriage is even more interesting. There is a man in Medina by the name of Abu Talha. He is also a very wealthy man, also a very intelligent man, and also a very handsome man. And when Malik passed away, he proposes for Sulaim. And Sulaim responds saying, "O Abu Talha, a person like you is not turned away. A proposal from a person like you is not turned away. But I am a Muslim woman now, and you are a disbeliever. So I am sorry, I cannot marry you." So Abu Talha says, that is not the reason you don't want to marry me. The reason that you are giving is not the reason you don't want to marry me. Actually, you want more money from me. And Sulaim says, I have no need of any of your money. She said, in fact, I call you to witness, and Allah and the Messenger, that if you become a Muslim, then I'd be pleased with you as my husband, and that would be my mahar. I don't even want your money. The mahar that you have to give me, I don't want any money from you. Just accept Islam. And your acceptance of Islam is sufficient as my mahar. As my dowry will be your Islam. Look again the love of Islam that Sulaim possessed. So Abu Talha said, let me think about it. So she used to taunt him whilst he would worship his idol. He was an idol worshipper. And whenever, that time there was no real parda yet. So when she used to see him worshipping the idol, she used to walk by and taunt him and ask him, because he said, let me think about it. So she used to taunt him and say, did anything happen yet? Has your idol heard you yet? Has he done anything for you yet? And at first, Abu Talha used to laugh. Then he realized how silly his worship of the idols was. So he went to Sulaim and he said to her, I have accepted Islam. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Now, again, I said, even her second marriage was more interesting. So Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu now, being the orphan because his father had passed on, is living with his mother, and he is now witnessing all this happening in their home. So Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates for us And he says, my mum turned towards me and said, "Oh Anas, stand up and marry me to Abu Talha." Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, I was only 10 years old and I performed my mum's nikah. Again, another lesson here, and we experience this many times. Sometimes the father passes on and the mother is a widow and there are children in the home and the mother is alone and she needs companionship and she wants to remarry. But these children normally are not happy with that situation. Here we're learning a lesson that Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu performs his mother's nikah with the second husband. Subhanallah. Anas says, I was 10 years old and I performed my mother's nikah. Anas used to say that among the Sahaba, we used to say that there was never a better dowry than the dowry of Sulaym. Because what was her dowry? The acceptance of Islam of Abu Talha radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Subhanallah. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam arrives to Medina, Sulaym turned a part of her house into a musalla, and she used to ask Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to come and pray in that musalla. Again, another lesson. Let's reserve a certain section in our homes to be a place where we perform our salah. Sulaym turned part of her house into a musalla, and she used to ask Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to come and pray 2 rak'ahs in that musalla. And subhanallah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam obliged. He used to frequently visit the home and perform his salah in that part of the house. Sulaym turned to Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu and said, the part of our discussion about how mothers in that time trained the children with regards to Islam. And she turned to Anas and said, you are going to serve the messenger. And Anas says, my mom took me to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and said, he is dedicated to you, O Nabi. Obviously, he was a little shocked, but he did not resist. That's why you find his amazing legacy of Anas bin Malik. How many ahadith of his that we have benefited from and we still benefit from. It starts off by his mother taking him and telling him, stay with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and serve him and learn from him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the other hand, loved Anas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu like his own son. Sulaym's assertiveness, Sulaym's character continued even after that. And I want to mention some amazing, interesting incidences of Sulaym's bravery, her assertiveness, and her amazing character. Even when the battles took place, Imam Ibn Salim radiallahu ta'ala rahimahumullah says that there is not a single battle that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam went to that Sulaym was not part of. There was not a single battle that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam went to that Sulaym was not part of. Now you may question, what was Sulaym doing in those battles? Subhanallah. One day, her husband, Abu Talha, goes to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and he says to Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, let me tell you something about Sulaym. Imagine the husband going to Rasulullah and telling Rasulullah something about Sulaym. He says, let me tell you, O Nabi of Allah, something about Sulaym that will actually make you happy and make you laugh. And Rasulullah says, what's that? Abu Talha says that during the battle of Ahzab, I noticed my wife Sulaym pacing behind the men. So I went to her and I told her, what's wrong? What are you doing? And he says, I noticed that she was holding a knife behind her back. So he says to Rasulullah, I see my wife Sulaym pacing behind the men, and I see that she is holding a knife behind her back. So I asked her, are you planning to fight the enemy with the small knife that you have in your hand? She said, no. This is for you guys. So if any one of you tries to leave the battle, I'm going to pull the knife out and threaten you. Anyone that tries to leave the battle, I'm going to take this knife out and threaten you not to leave the field of the battle. So he goes back, so that you go back and fight. Now, this is what he says to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam smiles with happiness, subhanallah. At the next battle, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam sees Sulaym, and when he sees her, he remembers what Abu Talha said about her, and he smiles at her and said, "Oh Sulaym, what are you doing?" She said, "Ya Rasulullah, you take care of the mushrikun, I'll take care of those that try to flee the battle. I'll take care of the Muslims." Subhanallah. That was the strength of her position. It shows the way she stood and served Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And we find that she had a very special relationship with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It was the qadr of Allah that even though she lived in Medina, now some of us might be thinking, the masail of hijab, Maulana.
Okay.
And some of us might be thinking, but Islam encourages hijab.
Right.
And we're seeing this casual interaction of Rasulullah with Sulaym. Where does the aspect of hijab fit in? So it was the qadr of Allah Ta'ala that even though she lived in Medina and Rasulullah lived in Mecca, she was the maternal aunt of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam through breastfeeding. She was the maternal aunt of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam through breastfeeding. So she was a mahram to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, even though they had never met before. So Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu says that Rasulullah was so close to my mom that he never used to enter into a house like he entered into the house of Sulaym, meaning he entered her house as if it was his own. She was his maternal aunt after all. So he says that there was not a home in Medina other than his own homes that he used to frequent so much. And he used to enter the home as if it was his own home. It was said to him, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, why do you give so much attention to Sulaym? And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, there is a relationship between us. But he also said, her brother, again another lesson from the seerah that we learn, Rasulullah said, her brother died in front of me. Her brother, Haram ibn Bilhan, died on the day of Bir Ma'una when they went to deliver the message of Islam. And a man stuck a sword through him, and the sword exited from his back. And when that happened, her brother, Haram bin Bilhan said, Fuztu bi Rabbil Kaaba. I am successful by the Lord of the Kaaba, meaning I attained martyrdom. This is another amazing, compassionate attribute of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The care he takes of people that sacrificed for deen. Now, what is the backdrop of this incident? Maulana, there is something that we want to talk, but if you want to come in, please do come in. You know, these amazing stories are so interesting. And once we start talking about it, we can't stop. So if you want to
Most
come
certainly,
in,
man.
please, at any time.
No, we will. If there is anything, if there are any comments from the listeners, also we will forward it to Mulana. But for now, alhamdulillah, we're just enjoying this amazing story about this great Sahabiya radiallahu ta'ala anha.
So he said, "Fustu bi Rabbil Kaaba." I am successful by the Lord of the Kaaba, meaning I've attained Shahada martyrdom. Now that was the brother of Sulaim. Also died, and Sulaim also died on the same day in the same incident. So two people died. Rasulullah said, I give her special attention as well, because I am like her brother, even though she's his aunt, because through breastfeeding. A funny story once, Sulaim saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and she noticed that he was pale and that he hadn't eaten for days. So she tells Abu Talha, go to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and invite him to have dinner with us tonight. So Rasulullah turned around and took all of the Ashab al-Sufha, 10 poor people with him. So Abu Talha rushes to Sulaim, a bit anxious. So he goes to Sulaim and says, we are in trouble. Rasulullah is coming with 10 other people. And look at the iman of Sulaim. Look at the iman of this great lady. She said, if Rasulullah is bringing them, then the one who sent him will provide for us. Sulaim starts serving the food. As it is coming out of 10 people were fed. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, let me call another 10 people. And he sits them down in the house of Abu Talha. They feed all 10 of them. Then Rasulullah does it again until he brought 8 batches of 10, which means he brought 80 people in total to the house of Sulaim that day. And she says, Subhanallah, she says, even after that day, we had enough food from that dish to last us for 2 months. Subhanallah. She trusted Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam as well as the blessings and barakah that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam brought. In fact, once she took the sweat, the perspiration of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam when he was sleeping at her home, and it was hot, and Rasulullah was perspiring. She collected some of the perspiration of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam whilst Rasulullah was sleeping, and she mixed it with her own perspiration. And Rasulullah asked her, what are you doing? And she said, I'm taking the barakah that is coming out of you. This was the love she had for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And when Rasulullah recognized that she loved him so much, that one time Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he performed his Hajj, and when Rasulullah shaved his hair, and people wanted to collect the hair of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Remember, on the occasion of Hajj, Rasulullah had long hair up to his shoulders, so he shaved all of his hair. And when he shaved his hair, subhanallah, he remembered what Sulaim collected, his perspiration. He kept half of his hair and he left half of it for Sulaim. And that is where the love of Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam comes from. The one who said, the love of Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu for Rasulullah is as a result of witnessing the love his mother had for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Again, we bring in about the aspect of establishing the love of deen, the love of pious people in our homes, so that our children love the pious, our children love good deeds. Remember the beautiful dua that Rasulullah has taught us. Allahumma habib ilayna al-iman wa zayyinhu fi qulubina. And let us love all that you love. And this is what we are learning from here. That Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu learned to love deen, learned to love good aspects, things that bring you close to Allah, the love of Rasulullah from his beautiful mother. So that is where the love of Anas for Rasulullah comes. And when we talk of the love of Anas, subhanallah, he is the one who says that every night after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam passed away, I used to dream about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. After Rasulullah passed away, there was not a night that I did not dream of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. May Allah grant us the barakah and the blessings of seeing Rasulullah in our dreams. Anas' love for Rasulullah is such that he says, after Rasulullah passed away, I used to dream about Prophet every night. After he passed away, he used to dream about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has mentioned in an authentic hadith, I entered into Jannah and I heard footsteps. And I looked in front of me and there was Sulaym radiyallahu ta'ala anha. May Allah ta'ala grant all of our mothers the ability to learn from these lessons, the love of Rasulullah. And it is going to be the love of Rasulullah that is going to bring our homes that will develop within our homes, pious, obedient children. And it is that will inshallah also take us into Jannah. Inshallah, Maulana, I think we talk about the motherhood of Sulaym and Abu Talha continuing inshallah next week. I know I've taken up a lot of our time. That we want to talk about, please.
It is very, very, very lovely, Ma. Jazakallah so much for that beautiful program, the beautiful words, the way Maulana presented it, and the selection. And now we can understand why Maulana started off with the story of Sulaym radiallahu ta'ala anha. We can understand why Maulana even said that, if you're looking for a name to give a baby girl, then choose this name. What a great sahabiya radiallahu ta'ala anha. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant our women folk, our mothers and sisters and daughters, the ability of emulating this great sahabiya in her love for Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Jazakallah so much, Maulana. We can't, we already now eagerly awaiting next week's program because such beautiful gems that Maulana shared with us. Jazakallah so much.
Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I don't know if Maulana is still listening, but somebody just sent a message.